shut up and sit down.
That's awesome.
Hey, it's where the big boys play. SICW.
Welcome to Discovery Podcast, everybody. Episode 70. That's right. We've been on for over a year. And today we have a special guest, Jemery Lightfoot. Before we get into that, we have some bookkeeping. And it is, we have an ongoing issue with a major sports entertainment company in which YouTube has decided to side with them, even though we've proven we have the rights to use certain footage. So we usually only pimp ourselves at the end, but we need to pimp ourselves at the beginning. If you guys can like, subscribe, comment, so we can get more followers, and YouTube will actually do the right thing, not shadow ban us, and respect the rights that we have to the copyright for us to use the footage that we have been using for over a year.
So anyway, what he's trying to say is, if you like the content that we bring you on a weekly basis, please go ahead and hit that bell so that time, it rings every time we post something new. That way we don't have to worry about the algorithm. I can't even say it. The algorithm, man, I can't even fucking say it again. See, Jeremy, I cussed as well. The algorithm, man, I can't.
Algorithm.
Oh, it's horrible. So anyway, yeah, please like, subscribe, comment, please share. That way more people get to see this, and we get some more feedback from other people as well. Everything's going to help us out. So please go ahead and do that. But so.
And also, one thing real quick, we know that we have a lot of WWF legends of the past that watch, and current WWE and pro wrestlers from all over the world. You guys watch our podcast, but as long as watching it, pimp us out also. Tell your friends. Put it on your social networks. Get them to like and subscribe so YouTube will do the right thing without having to think about it. So anyway, pass it off to you, Jackson.
All right. So Jeremy, the whole thing is we have the rights by Herb to showcase some of the Wrestling at the Chase videos.
Right.
And yeah, and sometimes WW something likes to say no, they own the rights, and so they fight us from time to time. And we've proven them wrong so far. But we did a Harley race video. Even though it's Wrestling at the Chase and they don't own it, they still flagged it saying that they do. So now we're currently in another little scuffle with them. But, all we can do is send in the paperwork. We're not a big money machine like that place is, so I think they sided with them.
And they
time.
know it, and that's why they're doing it.
I remember a story straight from Larry's mouth himself of Triple H reaching out and trying to buy those rights, and he said no.
Right.
And
now,
so
there is,
the other thing is the quote from YouTube when I sent in the paperwork saying, "Oh no, we have the rights to that, not WW something." And their quote, I'm quoting the email they sent back saying, "Well, this certain company says their rights are still valid." They went on that company's word without proof, no paperwork. And yet our paperwork's on file because we've been doing this for a year battling with them. That's one reason why the subscriber count is lower. Because they shadow banned our stuff.
Showing the history of where our business came from and where the younger generation should be watching the stuff you guys are promoting. God forbid we embrace the business we all love. No, let's bring litigation into it. Yeah, that makes no sense.
Right. So anyhow, our special guest tonight is Jemery Lightfoot. Now, this gentleman has been wrestling forever, but just recently decided to retire.
Yes.
So we're actually going to take a trip down memory lane because I want to kind of start from the beginning, actually, with you.
Okay.
So the first thing I normally ask all of our guests, what did you watch when you were growing up? Were you a WWF kid or a WCW kid?
NWA.
NWA. Okay, so pre WCW. So
Yeah.
probably some of the Texas stuff too, I assume.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
WCCW and the UWA and all that. Yeah.
All right. So what actually got you like watching wrestling, and then eventually what got you to actually, because you started at a very young age, 15,
Mhm.
am I right?
I started training at 14. My first match was at
14.
16. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I
So
asked Jim about this, and he said at that time the law was 17. How did you come in under that law and for you to get certified to wrestle in
The
Missouri?
law back then was 18, but you needed both parents' signatures, and you needed to the promoter that you were working for at the time needed to sign off a waiver, basically stating if anything happens to this kid, that promoter's going to lose his promoter's license. Which God love Frank Reed for putting RCW at the time CSWA on the line to say this kid knows what he's doing. But you needed two parent signatures, you needed the promoter's blessing, and Tim Lukinoff himself actually had to come down and watch you perform. So I was actually blessed to meet Tim Lukinoff and perform in front of him. Outstanding guy, and from what I understand, is still the head of directors today. But once all that was in a line, I was able to get my license and became the youngest licensed professional wrestler in the state of Missouri at that time.
Nice.
yeah, that's just crazy. But yeah, so let's go back. What got you started watching wrestling?
I was young age. I remember probably either two or three, and my father and I would sit up, and he always wanted me to watch the Three Stooges with him. But before the Three Stooges would come on KPLR Saturday night, I think it was Saturday Night Live Event or whatever, but it was NWA, and I was hooked. You know, guys like Ricky Steamboat, Sting, the Road Warriors. I am not calling them the Legion of Doom. I'm not giving it that crap. Those were the Road Warriors. Just Ronnie Garvin, Flair. I mean, the blood, the violence. I loved it, and I've loved it ever since I was 2. What made me want to do it? I'll never forget this match till the day I die, and I tell every rookie I ever trained, no fan remembers the outcome of a match. No fan remembers, who did what. They remember the match. That's all. I can't tell you who won and who lost, but it was the Road Warriors versus the Midnight Express. And my father, I was 4 years old, and I blatantly remember my father putting his hands on my hips, lifting me up and putting me on his shoulders so I could see, because you remember when the Road Warriors were there, everybody was on their feet. And
hold on, so you were there in person?
Yes. And I remember my father saying, and like I said, I understand you guys said try not to cuss, so I'm going to. He said, "Holy shit, Animal has a chair." And right as I got on his shoulders, I watched Animal smoke Bobby Eaton. And I see him come up, and he's covered in blood. And I'm watching the reaction of these people. I wanted to do it. I was begging my father. I had no idea that they actually took the ring down. And I was begging him, "You've worked on this building. You've got to have access. Can we come back so I can play in the ring?"
Oh my God.
It's just there all the time, right?
Right. They're just set up, the hell with hockey. But I was hooked. And every Saturday we watched it. And then every time they were at the old Checker Dome, he took me. I mean, I got to see the likes of Brian Pillman and Elegante tag up in a cage against Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. I got to see, before Starrcade, Sting versus the Great Muta.
Nice.
I mean, I got to see the Four Horsemen take on dudes with attitudes, Luger and Sting, and I think they had the Road Warriors with them at the time. Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair. I mean, the list goes on and on. I was hooked.
All right. So how did you find out about wrestling, localized wrestling, whether, whatever, you said it was CCW before? It was RCW?
CSWA, Central States Wrestling Alliance.
Central States. Okay, I remember them. All right.
All I knew was the two big boys. I knew of NWA that later became WCW, and then the other one that we can't mention. And the Wildlife Foundation, them. And
There you go.
I only knew of that. So when I graduated 8th grade, my father and a friend of mine, his parents were talking out, waiting for us to walk across the stage. My dad come running to the back, being a wrestling fan, and said, "Hey, did you know your buddy Steve's parents, or Steve's dad, is a wrestling referee?" Well, all I knew back then was, like the guy with the face and the other guy we later on referred to as Little Nate.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, which one is he? Well, then I meet Ray Hopple, also known as Billy Jack Funkhauser. I'm like, I don't know this guy. Well, he wants us to come to the Northland Bowl. He's got us tickets. He wants us to watch the show. And I'm thinking, okay, man, we're going to see actual, had no idea who any of these guys were. I saw Lunatic Max and Dave Perry take on Randy Steele and Johnny Jet. They had Coco Beware on the card. They had Sapphire on the card. And I was still hooked, but at the same time, I'm like, I've never heard of these people and blah, blah, blah. Well, you guys know Dad. I mean, he wanted in. Now that we knew that the small time existed, he was going to find a way to get in. So he offered to do security. So now we're going to do these shows for free every time. And I won't go too far because I'm sure that there's going to be other questions that lead to this. But since my dad was doing security, I was selling tickets. I was tattooing towns, doing posters with Frank, running the spotlight, running music. The guys really loved when I ran music because I had a background in music, setting up the ring, and I was in heaven. I finally found the end to do my dream.
That is awesome.
So you and your dad got in at the same time then?
Yes, we didn't start working professionally at the same time. He started a year before me, but as far as like in-ring performances, but we joined CSWA at the same time.
That's cool. I just kind of always assumed it was like paid for you, but yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was basically an apprentice, the gopher, do whatever I could. And here's a hint for all the companies that are running now that watch this. Back then, at 13 or 14 years old, I was never allowed in the locker room, and neither were the girlfriends or boyfriends of the female wrestlers. That's what kept the magic alive. I was never told what was happening. I stayed out. I ran the spotlight. The locker room was sacred back then, and it needs to become that again.
So, Jemery, is Saturday we had one of my students debut, and he brought his girlfriend into the locker room, and I got wind of it, and I pulled him to the side, and I said, "Don't you ever bring her into this locker room again." And he goes, "Well, she was just there to do my makeup." I said, "If you need makeup put on, you do it at your house, you do it in the bathroom, but she does not come in the locker." And so he was taken back by it. But this is something that he should have known, because before we graduate our students or have them debut, they always sit in a locker room with us so they can kind of hear the stories and kind of learn under the tree. And it's always been like that, since he's been around, that no spouses, no girlfriends, come into that locker room.
Right.
And
all three of us worked the same locker rooms. And before my ex-wife started wrestling, you guys remember she painted my face on the steps. She never came into that locker room until she became an actual wrestler. And that was the rule back then. because I couldn't do it myself until we got divorced, and then I had to learn how to do it. So,
Like, look, I can do it.
Kind of happens.
oh, dude, I sucked at. You know how many times I poked myself in the eyes over the years because I wanted to get rid of all the skin here, and I couldn't.
But even more to the point, to keep it magical, even though
Oh, yeah.
I do all the video and everything for the wrestling, do the recording, editing, all that good stuff, I don't go in the locker room.
Yeah, there you go.
We're kind of freezing up here and off.
Yeah, we
here
are
and then,
freezing.
It's just there's that storm pattern that's out right now, and I think that's what's doing it. But
Yeah, prayers to all the people in Texas, for everybody that's watching this, man. You guys be safe. Yeah, this is insane.
Yeah, someone was telling me it was like 100 miles inland and still like I forgot what category, but a huge hurricane still.
Yeah.
It's like
And it's
crazy
coming
how
up
bad
this
it
way
is.
too. There's already been warnings put out for our area for flood warnings, all that good stuff. That's what's causing the communication issues because we're having pretty good gust of winds, at least outside my house.
Yeah, I was reading the evacuations, and it's scary. So hopefully everybody's safe and takes this seriously.
yeah, you know, it's been kind of bad for Texas the last couple of years. You know, who thought that they would get snow and then so many inches of snow that kind of cut off the whole power grid down there, and now they're getting hit by this. So it's definitely crazy.
Oh.
Well, the death nail for Texas power grid is
so-
to avoid federal regulations. They don't hook up to the federal grid, so Texas is its own little bubble.
Yep.
Yep, as it should be.
Well, you should know, Texan. Come on now, you're from Gun Barrel.
You started it out. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As it should be. You start out as like a little gopher, getting this, getting that. How long, or who trained you, and how long was your training?
Well, that's just it. I on another podcast, a guy had asked me what school did I go to. In the early to late 90s, there was no school unless you went to the power plant or the other one. There really wasn't any wrestling schools except for on the West Coast and the East Coast. I was in the Midwest. My training was one day I was setting up the ring, and one guy asked me, do you want to learn how to do this hold? Of course, show me. Great. Okay, well, now that I've told you how to do it, I want you to apply it to me. Okay, cool, boom. And then I would learn another move, and then I would learn this, and then I would learn the ins and outs and the stuff behind the scenes that we don't, we keep back there. I would finally start picking up little odds and ends. And my trainers, it's so hard to, I can name off names that pop up, but I always feel bad that I would forget somebody like Johnny Jett, the drill instructor, Pete Madden, Jay Kasner had a lot to help with. Makazi had a lot to do with my training. Guys like the Stud, Rick and Ron Brewer, the entire Brewer family, the Smith family, Bob Orton had a lot to do with my training, and that was the fortunates that I had a lot to do with. I guess we can't even mention his name. A certain other person coming up.
Oh no, he's fine. We talk about him all the time.
Okay, so right, Bob helping me, I helped his son. So the list goes on. Beast, Tony Costa, Danny Boy, Ron Powers. Just St. Louis legends and St. Louis greats that deserved way more exposure than they got.
Yeah, I always think about that. That if YouTube was if it wasn't invented yet, it was so new that no one was getting on. Because I think it was more of a MySpace when I first got into wrestling that I was uploading videos to.
Yes.
And if YouTube or like a TikTok or something was open back then, a lot more of us would be out there.
I think so.
And your training, we talk, me and Bobby talk all the time that yes, it was basically the same training. It was who showed up that night that was a veteran and that was willing to give a couple of hours to the new guys.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, you were part of that veteran group that actually gave back to my training and Bobby's training.
It paid off because you both were freaking fabulous, man. So I mean, you guys are killing it with what you're doing. So I'm proud of what you guys have become, and I'm proud that I had a small inkling in just getting you guys there. Yeah, I couldn't be more proud.
There's three that I credit the most to, and you definitely got the most out of those three.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
I talk about, my first stint, I was mainly Gino's kid, working under him. He was my main one. And then when Bobby got me to come back, that one, then it was more you and then Johnny Courageous, which a lot of people don't speak of, but Johnny Courageous did a lot of the training down there for a while. And then it was just a mix, because Danny Boy used to come swing through. I always give Danny Boy the credit for knocking me out the first time. Because Gino used to do this thing where it was, you stood there in the middle of the ring and everyone, if it was clotheslines, everyone gave you a clothesline. You had to get back up, take another one, get back up,
running the gauntlet. Yeah, you were running the gauntlet. Yep.
And Danny Boy, I guess with my height and him having to go up with it, just fucking clocked me, and I was like, eyes rolled in the back of my head, and I was done.
Man, I'll tell you, one of my biggest regrets with Danny Boy, I was so excited, and I couldn't have been mad at him. It wasn't his fault. Tony Costa came up to me and he said, "Hey, you went against Powers. You did an amazing match. You've went against Jackson. You've done an amazing match. Next month, I'm going to put you up against Danny Boy." And man, I was so excited because I've seen tapes of what Danny did back in the day, and what Danny did, present at that time. Watching matches of him and Pete Madden, just my jaw would hit the ground because these guys were doing ground breaking maneuvers that you only saw in Japan at the time. So I was so excited. 2 weeks before me and Danny got a chance to work, I couldn't remember if it was his back or his shoulder, but it was the injury that ended his career. And I was unable to work him. Man, I was devastated. And if I had anything I could do in going back into wrestling, like go back in time, I would go back a month prior to him getting hurt so I would have the chance to work him at least once, because the man was phenomenal.
That is awesome. I see that too, because I only got one chance to work Danny Boy, and it was in the crowning of the first SICW champion, and he ended up winning that tournament. But I got to work him in that, and I tell everyone to this day I still learn. We never stop learning, and
you don't.
That's the great thing about wrestling other people. Herb has a flux of people coming in and out, but you got the ones that stick around, and you learn so much more when people come. Like there was a guy from Canada came down, this weekend, and I got to work him. Bobby got to work him. It was kind of cool because it's a different style, but and that's what's great about having so many different trainers too. Now at Bob's school, I run Tuesdays and Sean Vincent runs Thursdays. Every now and then we have a guy that comes through, like Bobby came through once, Gary Jackson came through a couple times, and that's great. But I think our training was so much better because we learned from so many different people.
Yeah, you got a variety, right?
Right. And I tell the students that I have today, it's like, I'm going to teach you something. Bob will probably teach you, his generation version of how to get into that move. And then you got Sean Vincent, he'll teach you something else. It's your guys' job to learn all three and then pick the one that works best for you. I tell them all the time that's how it's going to be because, some
It's
people
like
pick up different moves a lot easier. And
it's like any other job. You learn the 101, you learn the basics, and then you make it yours.
yes.
You find a way to wave your hand before you do a move. You maybe drop to your knee before you hook a waist lock. You do something different than everybody else. Learn how everybody else does it, but then make it yours. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you marketable. That's what makes you stand out.
Definitely. All right, let's get back focused on you. So you debut. What do you remember your first match and who you wrestled?
It's foggy, but yeah.
Ancient history ago, yeah.
Yeah. It was August 8th of 1998, which was cool. 888. But the whole scenario, we had to rewrite the whole card all because one guy didn't show up.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Pretty Boy Floyd got a flat, and he was not going to make it because even if he would have got his tire fixed, he was still like 3 hours out.
Yeah.
So we had to completely rewrite the whole card. And like I said, Frank Reed was my first promoter, and he went to a couple of the vets, and he was like, "Hey, can he job? You think? I mean, is he ready enough to do that?" And they said, "Yeah." And dude, we ran around that whole locker room, gluing me together. It was Brian James's boots. It was Damian Blade's shirt. I used lipstick for war paint because I didn't even have war paint, so I used lipstick to draw on the 3 lines. I think my tights either may have been Brian James or Bodily Harm. I couldn't remember, but it was like build a wrestler in the locker room to get me ready. And I wrestled the Searcher, and I mean, 2-3 minute match. He beat the piss out of me from one side of the ring to the other. But man, the thrill, the moment I walked out that door to that god awful music that I used to come out to back then, dude, there's no drug, there's no alcohol, there's no drug, there's nothing that will give you that adrenaline rush when people are popping for you, when all eyes are on you. Man, and at 16 years old and freshly 16, my birthday's in May, I debuted in August.
Wow.
I wasn't even driving yet.
I was just going to ask you. Your dad probably had to drive you to the shows.
Well, I rode with Frank, but yeah, Dad did have to drive me to a lot of the shows. But man, I'm not driving yet. I'm not even out of high school. I'm still a freshman. And here I am in front of 300 people about to do what I've been trained to do. If they could invent a drug like that, I would become an addict tomorrow because there is no high that matches it. There just isn't.
Well, we just need to get your ass whooped, Phil, and
Yeah.
But at 16 to go against the Searcher,
Mm-hmm.
and that's crazy.
It was wild. Yeah.
We've had Searcher on here before, and he had talked about when he first started, and he had mentioned your name being there.
Yep.
So that was kind of cool. It's amazing how everything is kind of like we all know each other, but we don't, but we all kind of do. Because I didn't know the Searcher until probably 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We hooked up on this. Shoot. God, GCW. It was two brothers, Kevin X, Sharp.
Kevin and Steve Sharp. Yeah.
Yes. So Steve Sharp, he's been doing the movies and stuff like that.
Right.
And he was trying to develop one movie, and he asked for some wrestlers to come in. And it was like me, Philly Blunt, and Searcher. Never met the guy before in my life, and then all of a sudden I started working for him.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just
Yeah. Searcher, Damian Blade, myself, JD Hall. There's two others, and their names are escaping me right now. But we all started at the same time. Searcher and Damian Blade started 3 or 4 months earlier than I did. And the reason they started 3 or 4 months earlier is because we went through hell with getting my medical clearance. Because an irregular heartbeat is going to stop somebody from wrestling. They were afraid that if he gets hit when it's not beating, it's going to stop beating. Well, I'm sorry, but you guys both know the guy I'm talking about. You have never been hit harder unless you've been hit by freaking Waco. And if he couldn't stop my damn heart, then nobody else was going to. So, I mean, come on now. Waco, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, man. He was my Ric Flair. I was his Ronnie Garvin. He was my Ric Flair. You will never find, at least in that period, two guys that hit each other harder, two guys that respected each other more, and two guys that said, we're leaving it in the locker room. We're going out there and we're whooping each other's tails. That's what we are paid to do. Every match we had was a bloodbath. Our chests were swollen. Nobody has ever swelled my chest like that, man, before. I'm sorry. There's people can say, oh, I took Jemery Lightfoot to the limit. You may have took me to a limit. Waco took me to the limit. Okay? When I had to have a damn breathing machine to breathe after that match, go back and if you follow me on Facebook, I've posted a couple of those matches.
Did you,
Insane.
by chance?
Yes.
Because we know there's a video out. Well, we hope there's a video out there. But there was a match between you and him that had like 78 or 70 some odd chops in the match.
The two videos that exist don't even come close. Our record was I want to say the first time we locked horns at Broadway, and our record was 98 of me and him back and forth. And that was tomahawk chops, overhand chops, regular chops, just anything we could do to get the sound. And we were chopping each other's chests, foreheads, legs. I mean, me and that dude were sore after it was over. But here's the honor. Here's the honor of it. We had talked about doing it. You know, let's go out there and let's just beat the crap out of each other. To have a legendary promoter like Tony Costa, Lord rest his soul, walk up to both of us being, I think I've been in it a little bit longer than Waco, but he was still fresh, but I was still fresh-ish at Broadway. We thought we were in trouble. And you know that Tony was a man of very few words. And if he talked to you, you were in trouble. If he didn't, you did good. And he goes, I got to talk about you. Come here. And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm going to get fired. It was an amazing match, but I'm going to get fired. We bend down because Tony's only like 4'9" to talk to him. And he whispers in our ear, can you give me that again next month? Best honor ever. And of course, we're thinking, yes, we can. But at the same time, it's like, do we really want to?
I say,
Yeah,
were you able to breathe?
That's the match right there.
Well, that's the East
awesome.
You know what's cool about that
we got
video
a
while
video
it's
playing in the
playing
back?
is the fact that it's filmed from a fan's perspective. That is another honor that a lot of wrestlers don't realize. A fan took the time to hold a camera, and that back then there was no cell phones. That's a camera. Fans would bring a camera to film us. That's an honor.
Jimmy Harris was just talking about referee Bobby last week. There he is right there. I can't remember his last name though.
Patton,
Bobby
I
Patton.
think, wasn't it?
Yep. Bobby Patton.
I haven't heard much about him. I know he had a health scare like the last couple of years. I hope he's still around because
he is. As far as I know, that health scare, he's doing a lot better.
Oh, that's
so I think he was recently inducted into a couple of the Hall of Fames. So, I mean, look just deadlifting me. At that point, I was pushing 300 pounds, and that man deadlifted me. But here he goes.
There you go. You got it back.
So after working for Frank Reed, did you immediately go to South Broadway, or did you still, spread it around?
I did. The South Broadway story was, again, for some reason, I'm not a bad person, but I always felt when people had to talk to me, I was in trouble. And I don't know if that just came from a childhood thing or whatever, but I was doing a show in Vandalia, Missouri. Mark Bland, John Blackheart, Big Mama Love, Philly Blunt, Billy Diamond. I mean, the list goes on and on about how many guys came. And everybody in the then now RCW locker room is freaking out because these are the guys we're striving to be. Why are they here?
Yeah.
And Philly Blunt, I had known him previous from working a couple RCW shows, and he said, "Boss," which you guys remember. That's all we all referred to Costa as Boss. He said, "Boss sent us to scout." And I'm okay, well, who in the locker room? Because I'm going to tell them to do their best. Who do I need to go and tell, hey, step it up a notch. Broadway's here. We're here to see you. Not what you should tell me before I'm doing my match.
Gets you a little nervous.
Yeah. But apparently they liked what they saw. I started going down to the training center, and my first match at Broadway was December 9th of 1999.
Man, you're good with dates. I can't remember shit when it comes to dates.
The only reason I can is because they're on YouTube. That's the only way I can remember. But so I hadn't even graduated high school yet. I graduated in 2000. So I was still a 17-year-old kid wrestling at what I always viewed as the granddaddy of them all. So yeah, I went to the South Broadway Athletic Club at 17. And then had a small minor falling out with RCW, and I started working for MPW, Missouri Powerhouse Wrestling, for about 8 or 9 months, and then me and RCW kissed and made up, and I was back there. So you guys know how it is, man. You're pissed when you left, but you never close the door. You might close it, but you don't lock it.
So you talked about Boss's few words and intimidating, and like I was on the receiving end of that a few times.
Yeah.
And it was just an aura to him. There was no nonsense. Like it was all business.
Anytime Tony talked to you, did you ever hear the Sicilian guitars in the background? Because you felt like the mob was going to drive by and shoot you, man. How could you be intimidated by a 4'9" man? But he had that much power.
It's shocking like that too. Because I talk about Gino. He to me, when I was going through my training the first time, he was so intimidating as well. But after a while, to me, he almost became a father figure. And it's so weird how that happens. But yet, it's like, man, he's fucking riding me hard, and I can't stand this motherfucker. And it's like, give me a hug, man.
He never gave up on his trainees, and he was going to sweat and bleed just right along with you guys. I remember that.
Yeah.
Me and Gino butted heads a couple times. I remember I would actually walk into the training center, and he would look at me, and before he'd open his mouth, I'd say, "What did I do now?" And we had to go outside and talk. But Gino was an amazing guy.
Yeah, he definitely was. Speaking of Frank Reed, I'm just gonna put this in there. You know, it's amazing again too because Frank Reed gave me my start, gave Bobby his start because we had a little in and out with Broadway. You know, we got kicked out a few times before we actually got a good start in there. But so we were working for RCW, and it was so weird because you know you finally get your foot in the door, but you're not getting paid anything. Maybe hot dogs, maybe some beer or some sodas. And then as you grow in the business and start making money, and you're like, man, I can't believe I did that for a hot dog,
Oh yeah.
In my
Expired
I always
coupons.
talk about it. One time he paid us in coupons, and they were expired McDonald's coupons. They weren't even legit. We couldn't even get our discount. But at the same aspect, you're so glad that you met him. You're so glad that you worked for him because he did get you that foot in the door, someplace to wrestle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then again, rest in peace for Frank Reed as well, because
Frank was like a dad to me. I was fortunate enough, like I said, at 14, 15, and 16, and up until my mid 20s, to be on the road with him and not only hear stories about wrestling. I mean, this man's first show, he had Abdullah the Butcher taking on Bruiser Brody, and it was one of Bruiser Brody's last matches before the unfortunates of what happened in Puerto Rico. But hearing stories of life, Frank compared life to wrestling so much. You're going to be in the locker room and you're going to see the muscle heads, you're going to see the cigarette smokers, you're going to see the beer drinkers, you're going to see the pill poppers. It's up to you which group you follow. That was a life lesson. You're going to see the gorgeous women in the front row. You're going to see the ugly women in the front row. And you're going to see the women that want to get to know you. It's your choice which one you're going to go after. Frank taught me so much about life, wrestling, how to be a dad, how to be a grandfather. The man loved people. He didn't love wrestling. He didn't love sports. He loved people. He was amazing.
yeah, even right before his passing, I was able to work for Searcher a few times, and Searcher brought him up and had him do commentating, and still able to talk to him, and for like I said, giving me my first couple matches, getting my foot into a business that I love. I got to give him props all day long for that.
Oh yeah.
So, let me might be a fast forward or not, but was there any legends that you got to work in your time?
Not early on. I mean, Bob was a big part of my early bringing up, but I mean, let's be honest. Bob is a legend. Bob is an amazing person, but to us, he's Bob.
Right.
You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
It does.
So I mean, some of the big names that I got to maybe get advice from was the person that is causing your guys' litigation right now. With Hacksaw Butch Reed was a big influence. I got to sit and listen to him tell stories on the road, and when he found out I was training, all these old guys constantly referred to me as the kid. Bob later told me it was because he could never remember my name, but I was the kid. So, but I sat with Hacksaw Butch Reed, Mabel, King Mabel or Viscera. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that we would bring in. Coco Beware. Got to learn a lot from him. Sapphire, amazing woman. And here's a funny story about Sapphire that it hits me real tight in the heart. When she was working for RCW, and I walked up to her, she didn't say that's Jeremy Lightfoot. She said that's Jemery, and everybody's like, you know this man? No, I know that kid. Sapphire worked at my elementary school before she started working for the WWE.
Oh,
And
wow.
Sapphire would serve my food, and she always said, "Hey, baby Jemery, that's my baby Jemery." And I guess I never aged. And I wrapped my arms around her, and I said, "My God, Miss White, it's so good to see you." Never knew her as Juanita, never knew her as Sapphire, always known her as Miss White. Gave her a big old hug. She says, "Damn boy, you got big." It was great to see her. But yeah, so that's some of the legends coming up. I mean, there's so many stories. How do you remember 26, 27, 28 years of all the stuff,
Yeah. I told the story before that Sapphire was the first wrestler that I ever got an autograph from.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and technically she was more of a manager to Dusty at the time, but the first person I ever got to meet and got their autograph from. I wish I still had it, but that's when I was so young, and but I still remember it.
Dude, she was such a sweet woman. And getting to know her as Juanita White, even though, she was like one of the teachers to us. But then getting to realize that this woman worked with Dusty Rhodes. This woman drove the wrestlers around, did all these interesting things. And then getting to meet that side of her. I mean, dude, she was just a very sweet, sweet lady. I mean, look at that picture. How could you not fall in love with that woman? Yeah. You just want to hug her. She's got mom vibes. She is such a sweetheart.
She is one of the very few, when you hear stories, that I've never heard a bad one about her.
Neither have I. The only thing I've ever heard is that was one story.
Didn't hear that either, so.
Yeah. She was anything she was paid from that company, she didn't know what to do with it because all it was paper. All she knew was cash. I mean, this is a woman from North County that was born in the, the 40s and 50s. All she knew was cash. And she, from what I was told, she asked Dusty Rhodes one day, "Well, what do I do with this?" And he's like, "Baby, you put that in the bank. That's how we get paid."
So Herb had told us a story that Larry passed on to him. Well, I guess didn't pass on to him. Evidently, Vince McMahon had called Larry and asked him if they had any girl wrestlers that he knew of. And so he reached out to Herb, and I guess she worked a few spot dates for Herb, and Herb suggested her, and then right away she was, sent to the WWF. So I mean, awesome. You can't tell a better story.
No.
So I mean, she's just awesome. Plus, who can forget her dancing with Dusty Rhodes in the middle of the ring with the polka dot era?
Yeah, just in her own vibe, just doing her thing. Didn't care who them people were. She shaking her moneymaker.
Right. So, how many states do you think you worked
in? Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, Kentucky, Oklahoma. Would Kansarado count? That's on the borderline of Kansas and Colorado.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and say it. So 6.
Okay.
Yeah. But all Midwest.
All Midwest. Now you
All
had moved
Midwest.
to Colorado for a while. Did you wrestle out there at all?
No, that was I had took what was it, a 4 or 5 year hiatus from wrestling. And when I went out there, I knew Vader and Russo were running a school, and there was like 5 or 6 indie promotions around the area. But I mean, you guys know as well as I do, you get burnt. Whether you get burnt for 6 months or you get burnt for 6 years, doing a show on Friday, doing a show on Saturday, doing 2 shows on Sunday for every weekend from age 16 till I think 30 is when I decided to take a break. Man, it took a toll. It took a huge toll. So I told everybody I wasn't retired. I was just hanging them up for a while. And but no, I never did work any of the promotions in Colorado. I just worked for that small promotion that was on the border. And the reason they called it Kansarado is because you could literally dance on the line.
Oh.
The city was in both Kansas and Colorado, and you could dance on both. And I think it was MOCW that had the NWA moniker, and they had booked a show out there. And so I went and worked for them. Matter of fact, they set the ring up on the line. If you ran the ropes, you were going from Colorado to Kansas City.
Well, then it
wow.
definitely counts as wrestling in Colorado.
It was cool. So yeah, I took a lot of bumps in Colorado. I took a lot of bumps in Kansas.
Now,
You were doing the music. You were in a band when you were in Colorado, weren't you?
I was in a band until I moved and found out that they were auditioning drummers with my drum set, and that's why I moved back or came back and took it with me.
Wow.
But yeah, music was always my passion. I've been playing drums since I was 5 years old, and finally recently got to set my baby up. I haven't been able to play it yet, but she's finally set up. And yeah, I was in numerous bands from age 14 to 16, and then when I took a break from 30 to 31 or 32. But yeah, in a bunch of bands. I love playing music. Music has always been my passion.
Hey, you always came out to the best music when I knew you. Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle, and then you actually took pieces of it and mashed it together with some other music, and that just made it even cooler. But yeah, I'll never forget because when I debuted, I wanted to come out to Welcome to the Jungle because Guns N' Roses has always been my band. And you were coming out to it. I was like, oh well, Lightfoot's got it. So
I tried to get rid of it. You can blame Doc for that song. I tried. Dude, I loved that song when I first started. I am not taking anything away from Guns N' Roses because I love Guns N' Roses. But Dad as a proud parent. So I would hear the song on the way to the ring. I would go over. I'd hear the song on the way back to the ring. And of course, like you said, I wasn't driving, so I was riding with Doc. He's got to put the tape in and crank it, and I've got to hear Welcome to the Jungle 6 times on the way home. And then, of course, KC's playing it everywhere. So now I got to hear that. Then St. Louis books Mark McGuire, and what does he walk to the plate? Welcome to the Jungle. I'm like, can we get rid of this damn song?
I don't know, because I have a match that has your walkout music in it that's Welcome to the Jungle, so you want to hear it one last time?
No. I even did that as a tribute and an honor to my father. My last entrance music when I retired was Welcome to the Jungle. I mixed it up a little bit. You know, I did a couple things at the beginning, like you said, but I figured that's what I came in on. That's what I'm walking out on. So.
Is that the first song you learned on the drums?
No, the actual first song I learned on the drums was Jump by Van Halen.
Nice.
Oh.
Yeah. Which, please don't ask me to play it now because I haven't played a Van Halen song since I was 10.
I thought I was going to say, now that you're retired wrestling, you're going to get back into music again? Get a
Dude, I
band?
got drumsticks sitting right over there. I've been doing paradiddles and everything, waiting for you guys to log on. Watching the phone, I had my little drum pad right in front of me, just going. So,
Gotta
yeah,
get
I
a
will.
band going again.
I don't know if I want to get a band going. All of us, well, I don't know if you've been married, sir, but I know we all have. And a band is like being married to 4 different people and 4 different personalities. And one wants you to take out the trash. One wants you to mow the lawn. One wants you to go to the bedroom. One doesn't even like you being there. You hate each other. I will never be in a band again.
Hey, I married my wife for her personality, and then she threw 5 more in.
That's what it's like being in a band.
Oh, that's
Because when you audition, they seem like cool dudes, but then when you try to help write, oh God, you start World War III. There
I
used to be an
remember
old
when you.
saying, and I hope I don't offend any drummers. Did you ever hear that awesome song that a drummer wrote?
Oh, no.
That's because it don't exist. Sit down behind the drums and shut up, fat boy. Let us do our work. That's the
Oh,
old
damn.
joke.
Now, I remember when you were in Colorado, and every
Uh-huh.
now and then I would hit you up on Facebook or vice versa, and I would always beg for you to come back and get back into wrestling. Now, you finally do, and you move back, you get back into wrestling. And what's really cool is I see that you brought your son out, and now I remember your son as just a little baby, and it's
His little
such
gravedigger truck in that locker room.
Yes.
just
It's still his favorite stuff to
crazy
this day.
crazy how big your son has gotten, how old your son has gotten. Now,
Yep.
I see that he's dabbled into wrestling. Is he going to stick with it?
He's on the fence. He's on the fence. And I want to be, I'm on the fence with it. I want to be the dad to push him on the side and go bring my legacy and do it. But at the same time, I don't want to be forceful. I want him to do what you want, live life. I'm going to make you guys feel old, but Austin's going to be 20 in September. I mean, and at 6'2", 230 pounds, and he hasn't even finished growing yet. And and I don't know where that height came from, because he didn't get it from Jen's side and he didn't get it from my side, but he's my kid. I mean, you can't look him in the face and say he's not.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
definitely, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I turned the knob a little bit too much and threw height in there, but I want him to do it, but I'm not going to force him. But he definitely, the battle royals that he has done, including hitting me with my own Lightfoot driver in a battle royal. And I can give you that story if you want, but the kid has the talent. It's just the push. And he definitely got the chop, because I felt his chops. And he hits like his dad. So
That's awesome.
I'm going to say I'm hopeful, but I'm not forceful.
Yeah.
Now you're retired
I,
from in-ring. Could there be a possible manager spot for you?
I have said, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to pull. I'm not going to pull the curtain back, but I'm just going to lift it up so you can see our feet moving a little bit. There are 2 ways that I will come out of retirement, and it will be for 1 or 2 months. If he starts working, I want to tag with my son, but I don't want to tag just one match. Yeah. I want to tag with him a couple times. The other way is if the company that I signed a Legends contract with, if they do War Games, I'm coming back. For one-off, I'm coming back to do War Games. That is the only thing on my checklist. And I had a checklist at 14 of all things I wanted to do. The only thing that has not been checked off is wrestle a War Games match. There used to be one that wasn't checked off, but I scratched it off because I couldn't find anybody crazy enough to do it with me. And that was a scaffold match. And I figure it's never going to happen, so I scratched it off instead of just leaving it unchecked.
when you had talked about the Road Warriors versus well, now I can't think of the name.
Midnight Express.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say it was a scaffold match because I know they had done so many of them before.
Night of the Skywalkers, yep. And
Yeah.
I always wanted to do one, and the horror stories that I've heard about them never scared me. But I just couldn't. I wasn't going to lose, so I couldn't find anybody that was going to fall off it.
Yeah. I mean, what Jim Cornette broke both of his ankles in one because he fell off of it.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not made for you know, well, let's just say a wise wrestler would never do it.
Right. It is not ballet, but it also isn't dance class because your legs ain't going to work afterwards.
Right.
But
Okay,
those,
so
yeah, that's the only way that I would come back is those two scenarios, and it wouldn't be a full stint.
you know, I have three boys, and each one of them, they're 3 years apart. And you know, the first one would come to the shows and get really interested in it, and then you know, some happen, you know, find girls or find
Yep.
outside activities, and then the next one would come up to that age. And my middle child actually started training,
Nice.
and he didn't. As a young kid, he always suffered from headaches, and of course,
I
you know, in
remember that.
training, that's the worst part is learning how to take a back bump and protect your head.
Yes.
So he never got out of the training, but he's in the military now, so he's got a great life now.
Well, thank you for his service. Thank you.
Yes, definitely. And then my youngest one, you know, he was all loving the being backstage and meeting all the legends that he was able to see, you know, watching TV with me and him together and stuff. But he never really got the bug for it. So I lost out on all three of mine. I'm kind of hoping Bobby, since he teaches, you know, Greco-Roman and freestyle wrestling with all of his kids, that maybe we'll have someone take it up. But his are still too young. So, matter of fact, his oldest just turned 14. So
he can start training.
That makes me feel old. God, that makes me feel old.
Blowing that up nationally though.
Oh man.
I know we're all.
Hey, so this
it's
year,
okay.
Jeremy, you went into the RCW Hall of Fame, and next year you're going into another one. How do you feel about that happening back to back?
Well, hold on. Before you answer this, there was a time. There's another Hall of Fame out there, and we all thought you should be in it, and your name never came up, and it was kind of disappointing because to me, you were always a veteran and a legend, someone who taught me, so I always believed that you should be in one.
Thank you.
Then all of a sudden, back to back, you get announced two different companies are putting you in the Hall of Fame. Now go ahead and answer.
The wild thing was, and neither Hall of Fame had worked together. Neither Hall of Fame knew. They were both cooking this up at the same time. So talk about how amazing fate is. It's I'll talk about the RCW Hall of Fame first. Going into the company that I cut my teeth, going in with a class of Frank Reed. So I'm going in with my mentor, the man that taught me everything. I'm going in with Douglas O'Shea, which was somebody that I feuded with constantly. And we went all over the Midwest feuding. It's an honor that I really can't describe, because that's something that the moment I took my first bump, I said, I want that. I want a Hall of Fame moment. And now it's here. And then at the same time, the other Hall of Fame, the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, when they called me, they told me they wanted me to go in 2024. They wanted me to go in this year. But the unfortunate was one of the requirements, and it's also one of the requirements for the RCW Hall of Fame, is you had to be retired. And I told him, I said, guys, I'm honored, but I am not going to retire just to go in. I have enough gas left in my tank to get to my retirement. I'm not going to force it. And Jim Harris respected that, and he said, brother, you let us know. And then I never heard anything after that. I wanted to go to this year's induction to see my friends and my trainers and people that I've done business with. And that night, when they not only announced that I'm going in, but they announced that my father is going in and we're going in the same class, man, I didn't want to cry in front of people because Doc raised me not to cry in front of people. But it was there. And you know what's worse is the old man raised me not to cry. I look over and what is he doing?
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I'm beyond words because going back to back like that is just, it's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about this last week with Mr. Harris. You know, the local wrestlers, we don't get half near as much credit as we should. And I say that because once you make it to the two big at the time, the WCW or the WWF, that's when everyone considered you making it. But for us guys, we're doing the same thing. We're putting our body on the line. We're, breaking bones. We're sweating our asses off, bleeding all over the place. And we're doing the same thing. And we're getting fans kind of ready for the WWF because, they see the local guys and then they start watching the other stuff or vice versa. And, I'm sure you've had moments with fans because I have little girls that, used to make signs and draw myself on the signs. And other ones come up to me and hug me and say, oh, you're my favorite wrestlers. That for us, before this Hall of Fame started popping up, that was always my big achievement. But I am so glad that there's some Hall of Fames popping up for the independents.
Yes.
Because it's a good way to tell the stories about the people that came before us.
Yeah.
We always talk about professionally how we have to look towards the Harley races and pay homage to the Luthez because they're the ones that broke ground for us being in there. But no one really talks about the independents that came before you or came before me. And at least Mr. Harris's group, they're paying tribute to all the groups, all the people from, because he was talking about how it's, RCW or MMWA or SICW or, all those guys. It's a way to bring them back, tell their story, give them their props that they deserve. And, sometimes I feel like a lot of people forget them. I will never forget Gino in my whole time. And I'm so glad that he was in that Hall of Fame. And I think his son, we've been talking back and forth on Facebook too, because, he didn't get to have that whole life with his dad.
You're talking Jacob, yeah.
Yeah, and so it just Facebook and messaging back and forth and telling him how much I appreciate his dad, is just the world to him. So I'm so glad that you're in not one, but two Hall of Fames. I mean, that's just
thank you.
Crazy cool.
It's phenomenal.
I wish too that you get that chance to wrestle your sons because that's something that I think that I wanted as well. And I'm happy with what they're doing now. But I really wish someone would follow in my footsteps and go with it.
I'll always support him, but there will be that little angel on my shoulder going, come on, kid. Come on, kid. Lightfoot, Lightfoot, come on.
Right. I mean, talking about a kid that grew up in the business. I mean, I remember him coming up being in his not the stroller, but the car seat, you
Yep.
know, and being in the locker room and everyone holding him while you guys are going down. And
Do you guys remember the old lady that used to take our pictures at ringside?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
She had more pictures of Austin playing in the locker room than she had of our matches. This woman would bring me 30, 40 pictures and 8x10 glossies. Here, you're going to want to frame this. Here, you want to frame that. And I'm like, ma'am, I'm running out of room on my walls. Can you take pictures of somebody else other than my kid?
That's awesome.
She's
Yeah.
a good lady, though. I still have a
Yeah.
picture she took and gave me of like one of my first times in the locker room.
I've got all of them that she's given me. I've got them in a
I mean, it's
folder
hanging in my
somewhere.
hallway.
Well, I just, you know, talking to Harris last week, and we got in pretty depth of everyone that was going in this past year. Well, currently this year, and then he dropped some names, like I said, for next year, and it just got me like nostalgic. And I was thinking about who could I have on the podcast,
I was
and
honored
not
to be there,
from.
bro.
Yeah, and not from the current SICW locker room or someone I respected. And I mean, someone I respected.
So did
And
you
I was
just
like,
say someone that I
yeah,
respect?
I kind of fucked up
I
there.
was like,
dude.
wait a minute, are we
Sorry.
starting to work something here?
Coming out of
I
retirement.
wanted someone that I respected.
I'll thumb wrestle you,
And,
bro.
and you were the first one to come to mind. I was like, let me see what
Appreciate
he's
that.
doing, you know. And yeah, I mean, I know we probably take up a lot of your time tonight, but I
No,
needed to
God,
get
no.
you on just
No,
for
man,
me to
I
have
am
you
honored
on.
that you guys called. I was bragging to friends. I was like, hey, I can't talk tonight. I can't be anywhere tonight. I'm doing a podcast. And they're like, but you're retired. I'm like, I know, but now I'm more popular. It was like when Michael Jackson died and people started buying his shit. I'm popular now.
Secretly, we're just trying to get you to unretire. And
My back and knees say no.
oh. You know, I tell the students at the academy, and I tell them, I said, you know, I was stupid that I've never wrestled with knee pads. I've always just wrestled in those sleeves that you can put on, and I said I've had everything done to my knees except for new knees put in. And I said, you think I would smarten up, but I still don't fucking wrestle with knee pads.
Because you're locked in your ways. You're locked in your ways. I started without knee pads, but it took a missed moonsault for me to realize, okay, maybe I need to put some cushion there.
Yeah, so
I've always
I
worn my
strongly
amateur wrestling
recommend knee
style.
pads to all of the students, but yeah, it's just one of those things.
I've always worn the amateur wrestling style where it's like the neoprene sleeve, and it's got that gel insert on the kneecap.
Mine were the Trace softball pads because they protected the shin, the knee, and the top of the thigh. Those were always my go-to. I don't even know if Trace is a company anymore. I'm not even sure if they're still around.
I think my problem is my first set and only pair of knee pads were volleyball knee pads, and they were just big old clunkers, you know, on my knees.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, no, it's too damn big and
Looks like you're
bulky
wearing UFOs on the end of your knees.
right.
I wanted to beat Jimmy Hart, so I haven't worn any knee pads for wrestling at all. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Just wait until you can't run around the ring that fast and one of us catches up to you. Then you'll wish you had knee pads on.
Well, with you guys, I don't have to run at all. I can just kind of briskly walk.
Right.
That's kind of true nowadays.
Well, not only am I not going to be able to chase you with my knees, I'm going to be out of breath. You're maybe going to get around half the corner. I'm going to be like, you know what? He's got to come back at some point.
Jimmy would hide under the ring, so I'll just do that.
There you go.
Well, I would. I told Jimmy that I'm going to try to come out to this one next year. He's already got the date announced, and so I want to be there. This year, me and Bobby, we both went to wasn't a wake, but it was a friend of ours that and mother had passed away, so we went there and
Celebrate someone.
yeah, so we did that instead. And then last year, I was actually booked at another show, so I couldn't come in. But we're gonna definitely try to make this coming up one, especially since you're going in and Doc's going in, because he started mentioning off people that he managed and got in the ring with. I said, "Hey, buddy, you managed the Big Texan. Don't forget about that."
Oh yeah.
You know? So
you need to help him. I mean, he's going on 66 years old. He needs to remember what happened. So,
well, I appreciate you coming in. We all appreciate you coming in.
thank you guys.
And,
Thank you.
Would love to have you back in. I told Jimmy that next year before the hall, we're going to have him back on, and would love to have you two back on at the same time.
Be great.
That way we can just talk the whole night about the old days. It'd be
Definitely.
awesome. Plus, we really want to plug the Hall of Fame for Jimmy for next year, because I kind of felt bad that we had him on the week after the Hall of Fame and not before, because you know, any little business that we can bring up to them, and you know, since they're doing sponsors too, you know, we would love to be able to get him some sponsorships or something drawn up. So we'll definitely have you and Harris on at the same time. I think that would be a hell of a show.
That'd be awesome. Definitely.
Yes. So I think it's come to the time that we're just going to wrap it up. Again, I want to say to the people out there watching, if this is stuff that you like watching, listening, old stories from wrestlers, which I'd love to sit down and be the fly on the wall. But if this is something you guys like, please like, share, subscribe, even comments. Anything, even that's small of a comment or something like that will help the algorithm. I said it right this time.
There you go.
It'll help us, you know, and help the channel get seen by a lot more people. But thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. It has been a pleasure.
And all right, awesome. Thank you. Until next week, we'll guys see you later. Thanks for coming in, sir.
All right, guys.
You have
Thank
a good
you.
night.
God bless.
Jimmy,
All right, take care.
Jim
Thank you,
and
Jeremy.
Bobby,
Thank you,
we
buddy.
need to talk about something.